Janet Phelan standing on deck live from Mexico. So let's go to Janet and get her report for the week. Welcome, Janet Phelan.
Hello, James. Nice to be back on your show. How are you doing today?
Very weird day. I don't know. Perhaps I am losing it, or or what? But just a whole bunch of stuff going on, and but keep on keeping on. Of course, need I even mention what's going on with you out here, exiled outside the country and whatnot? So it's kind of hard for me to complain to you. So.
Oh, well, everyone has their own burdens to carry, I think. I'd like to start off by mentioning an article of mine that is right now on the front page of New Eastern Outlook entitled North Korea Blasts U.S. for Germ Warfare Program. Now, I'm going to read a little bit from this article because it is relevant to what is essentially the subject matter for today's show, which is providing an update on the water as a weapon pandemic system. So in this article, starts off, the government of North Korea has leveled accusations that the U.S. is involved in germ warfare research and intends to deploy bacteriological weapons on a large scale. Now, frankly, I think that the government of North Korea is right on target with that. These accusations came in the wake of the recent revelations that the Pentagon mistakenly sent live anthrax to over 65 labs in the United States and also to labs in Japan, South Korea, Australia, Canada, and Great Britain. Now, North Korea's concern here is that the U.S. sent live anthrax to South Korea, is very concerned about what it is that South Korea and the United States intend to do with this live anthrax close to the border of North Korea. Now, interestingly enough, this story came right on the heels of an auction of an almost completely disappeared report from the Korea War entitled or known as the Needham Report. And the Needham Report, which was published in 1952, documented the use of biological warfare by the United States during the Korean War. And the official title of the report is Report of the International Scientific Commission for the Facts Concerning Bacterial Warfare in Korea and China. And a rare copy of this had been located and had been put up on auction. So I got a copy of the report, what was available online, and I found some very disturbing things going on, that the U.S. was involved in bacteriological warfare, both in Korea and China. Now, a couple of the things here, according to the report, the U.S. planes sprayed plague-infected fleas in both China and Korea, and they also, U.S. planes dropped insects and spiders carrying anthrax. What we're going to focus on today was the efforts by the United States to infect a drinking water supply in Korea, and they attempted to do so, according to the report, by dropping from a plane again cholera-infected clams into a water supply. So we're going to use that as our entree into a little update on water as a weapon today. Water as a weapon was actually original research that I did that was published several years ago. The original article was published several years ago. There have been updates as new information comes in. I want to give like a summary of what water as a weapon is as currently configured, because I don't think that the U.S. is going to drop cholera-infected clams into drinking supplies in the U.S. I think this was a rather early and primitive attempt to kill people in Korea, and I don't believe that we're going to look at we're going to see that kind of effort happening in the United States. What I was able to document in the Water as a Weapon article was the covert construction of a system within the United States, which appeared to be extant in every community that I looked at, wherein the water systems had been extensively reconfigured to provide a delivery system targeted per household. And in order to do so, a double line system was constructed. 2 parallel lines, whatever was in the second line, which we are sure is not water, is being withheld by a series of remote control valves. Now, if this sounds like science fiction, well, it sounded like science fiction to me when I started to research it, but the documents and the evidence have borne this out. So along with the article, Water as a Weapon, there are a series of documents attached, blueprints showing the double-line water system, photos showing the remote control valves, diagrams copied off of corporate websites showing how these remote control valves can be activated through a command off the internet. So what we have is a system which can operate as a chemical or biological weapons delivery system in a targeting manner. So that would mean that one house, let's say someone in government doesn't like you, James, they don't like what you're doing, you could get, they could open the valve to the second line, and whatever's in there would go into your house and leave the rest of the neighborhood unscathed. Now, the reasons I believe that the United States chose to invest in constructing a system like this has to do with their decision to maintain the public relations persona as the leader of the free world, as a country that is invested in making the world safe for democracy. And so a system such as this is a very different system than, let's say, a concentration camp system, where people are carted off, their neighbors know they've been carted off, people are disappearing, camps are being reported and so forth. That a system such as that would seriously damage the public relations persona of the United States worldwide. At that point, nobody would be conned any further into believing that the United States is the leader of the free world. However, should a pandemic occur, a pandemic that might be delivered through a targeting system such as water, the U.S. would be able to have their hands clean. There was a terrible pandemic. It was either a natural occurring pandemic, or possibly it was an airborne anthrax or whatever, airborne attack by some terrorist group. But the United States would be able to keep their public relations persona intact. So pursuant to that, I have, for the last several years, been doing a lot of research on pandemics, on the kind of work that our government is doing to protect us from such pandemics. And as we know, the events of September 11th were coupled essentially with a subsequent attack, which were the anthrax mailings. And due to this anthrax, which was put into envelopes and mailed to members of Congress and also to some media outlets, the United States therefore had a raison d'etre to pump billions of dollars into what they call a biodefense program, biological weapons defense. Now, the questions, there are a lot of questions raised as to what's going on with this biodefense program. And these questions were raised again when the U.S. was caught, as discussed in this article on the front page of NEO, New Eastern Outlook. The U.S. was caught with mailing live anthrax all over the world. So,
I mean, just imagine if, say, Iran did that. Oops, we made a mistake. And the United States, oh, yeah, it happens, so we understand. I mean,
Oh, the U.S. would probably invade it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is
yeah.
to talk about double standards, and you mentioned about them worried about losing the tarnish as the leader of the free world. I think that's only in their heads. I don't think anybody in this world thinks they're the leader of the free world other than the brainwashed people underneath those leaders of the free world, and that number is dwindling.
The number is dwindling, thank goodness. However, I still get emails from people who angrily accuse me of saying bad things about a wonderful country, being the U.S., right? So I am certainly aware that while there are a lot of people waking up, we still need to wake up a whole lot more. So I want to focus the rest of this report on BioWatch. BioWatch was another one of George Bush's babies, how to protect us from, a terrorist attack, a terrorist biological weapons attack. And BioWatch, which has cost the U.S. taxpayers over $1 billion in the last 10 years, has basically is a program to detect a possible airborne bacteriological weapons attack. And sensors have been put up, I believe, in 30 cities across the country. There's a lot of concerns as to whether BioWatch is actually functioning well or not. And because of these concerns, back in 2013, the U.S. Congress refused to agree to some of the additional spending on this program that was requested by President Obama. At this point in time, looks like the spending is between $80 and $85 million per year for these airborne sensors, which are supposed to catch a biological weapons attack, which appears to be planned to happen through the water system, not through the air. Okay? So this is where your taxpayers' dollars are going. They're going down the drain. Recently, it came to my attention that a corporation in Germany, it's called EADS, has developed a mechanism for catching biological weapons in the water. And it's a process called flow cytometry. Now, this is not in the article that we were discussing on the front page of New Eastern Outlook. This will be in a pending article. But this there's a patent associated with this flow cytometry. I don't know, there was this flow cytometry process, and I've been looking over at the patent too. Now, so it's interesting to me. It does not appear that the U.S. has expressed any interest in guarding the citizenry from a waterborne bacteriological weapons attack. All of the attention and all of the funding have gone towards airborne. Now, if my conclusions about the trajectory of events are accurate, there will be a pandemic which will be waterborne. So at this point in time, we do have apparently a company that has invested in systems to protect the citizenry from a waterborne biological weapons attack. And I would like to put a challenge out here. If any members of the United States government with the EPA or other environmental protection sort of concerns, I would like to ask you to explain yourselves. I would like to know why you have invested over $1 billion of U.S. taxpayers' money in a detection system which is designed not to detect the genesis of the attack, and why it is that the flow cytometry that has been developed in Germany is not being engaged by the U.S. government. So this is my concern that I'm glad that I've gotten the airtime to discuss this. I want to say something very briefly on a more personal level. As some of the listening audience knows, I recently made a request for an appointment with the Ecuador Embassy in Mexico City asking for political asylum. And along with the request, I specifically stated that I did not want the government of Ecuador or the Embassy of Ecuador to contact the government of Mexico concerning what I had put into my concerns of why I needed political asylum. And when I did not hear back from Ecuador, I did get an initial letter acknowledging my request for an appointment, but following that, I didn't hear anything. So I recently contacted Ecuador again through the embassy in Mexico City to find out that they went ahead and contacted the Mexican government. Now, why would this be of concern? My situation in Mexico is unstable at this time. There is some fragility in my situation. And for any contact to be made with the Mexican government, which may include anything that was in my private correspondence with that embassy, would put my situation here at extreme risk and may open me up for deportation. And for those who are aware of why I am in exile, what happened in the United States, a deportation for me to the United States would be the worst case scenario. So I want to say publicly that I am appalled at what the government of Ecuador has done, because they have put me essentially at further risk. And that being said, I think that includes my report for tonight.
Well, I would, I don't know, the protocol, if you're being politically oppressed, and so they go contact the government who's oppressing you, sounds ludicrous. That, I mean, they might have to have some kind of, I don't know, investigation or what. I don't know how it works, but to contact the government who is allegedly oppressing you sounds a little ridiculous.
It sounds to me like somebody in Ecuador did not have my best interests in heart, or basically maybe just didn't give a bleep, right?
I want to add something on the top of this. I've interviewed Douglas Diedrichs many times, and a lot of people can think what they pro, negative, whatever. But he has stated he has access to documents that he was supposed to be destroying, and there's a backlog of it. One of the things he mentioned in one of the interviews, and I have several of them on YouTube, was that the World War II, the government planned and sent out to send armed servicemen who got the flu, purposely sent them, put them in a position to get the flu, and then sent them to Europe with the intent of
spreading. Send them where? I'm sorry?
To Europe.
Send them where?
To Europe, with the intention of spreading the flu. Much similar what they did with the with stretching westward with Native Americans. They would give them blankets that have been laced with smallpox or measles,
right.
measles, whatever. Mm-hmm. Same kind of deal. So I mean, it's for people thinking that the government is getting bad now. It has been the modus operandi forever. It's just that I would say they're getting either bolder or sloppier or both, or things are becoming known.
We're getting on to them. We're getting on to
with the internet and so on.
Right.
So this is not shocking news, though it's shocking to those who haven't, heard the past history. So I wanted to put that in there so people can go, who are hearing this, who might doubt this, can go look at the history of how they also did atomic tests on the population without their knowledge, how they put Army people out when they were testing nuclear. They purposely put them in the field to see what the effects of nuclear exposure was and so on. I mean, this is the history of this country, in the inside of the country. So this is not, should not be surprising given that history.
A former DEA investigator was a couple of years ago relayed to me a spraying program that was done over San Francisco back in the 50s that was meant to be sort of a behavior modification test. And it was the statement of the former DEA agent that the reason that there was such an explosion of homosexuality and alternative lifestyles in the San Francisco area was because of this behavior modification spray. So I think, I personally don't like being wouldn't want to be a lab rat. I don't think any of us would. And this water program is really very dangerous. Furthermore, should a pandemic, a false flag pandemic take place, you can be assured that people would be quarantined. Best to stay inside of your houses because, there's this terrible weapons that, that they'll call it airborne. It'll be coming through your pipes, folks. So I really want to urge people to have a lot of water storage supplies in their houses, and also to realize that just because you're not drinking tap water, you're still probably washing your hands, bathing in it, whatever. So the intent here, is to really get people prepared. So.
Yeah. Well, and it would explain also if this was what you mentioned about the spraying, the behavior modification. Also explain a lot of the media just flooding the airwaves with the transgender stuff. It's getting us to accept it, and part of it may be some program going on.
Well, goodness knows, we're living in very strange times, and I'd like to say one other thing very briefly. I know some of the things we talk about on this show are sometimes a little scary, and I really want to encourage people to people of conscience and people of faith to really understand that they are actually being given a marvelous opportunity now, because they are being given the opportunity to distinguish themselves in the face of a threat. And, distinguishing yourself can simply be as simple and easy as sharing information with friends and neighbors and doing what you can for others, while we are under this oppressive and frankly, terrorizing system. So with that said, I'll see you next week, James. Thanks again.
All righty. Again, thank you for your information and your work, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless.